remains closed in both directions following an accident at Northcote Road. It is queuing on surrounding routes as traffic diverts away. And long delays this evening in Surrey on the A3. It's down to one lane in both directions near to Guildford because of an accident.
This is LBC.
Food loving Brits, I'm here to tell you there are more local restaurants than ever before on Uber Eats. We're bringing it.
Really? Even Book's Chippy?
Whoa, don't sneak up on me like that. And yes, we bring buggies.
Macca's round the corner.
And them.
Mexico? Kebab Rush?
And them. And Uber Eats are giving new customers like you a tenner off your first 3 orders with code BRINGIT10.
I bet you don't bring fat buns.
What's just for me? Nah, I'm kidding. Of course we bring them. Minimum spend £15. T's and C's apply. Check the Uber Eats.
On Monday, and pedestrian roads give businesses the perfect opportunity to capitalise on alfresco dining, on getting people outdoors and into restaurants at times when we're not allowed indoors into restaurants. So doesn't this seem like a good thing? You tell me. 0800 731 2000 is the number that you need. And joining me right now is a man who's got lots of opinions about this. It is the chairman of the London Cab Driver Club, Grant Davis. Grant, welcome to the BBC.
Good evening, how are you? I will say good evening because it is after 6.
Yeah, Grant, I kind of agree with you. I think, once we hit past 6, it's just evening then, isn't it? Early evening, yes. I thought supper was at like 9 o'clock. Did we have supper? No?
Not in this household, it isn't.
No. I didn't need to come to your household then. Listen, Grant, supper aside, what's your initial reaction to the idea that Brick Lane could be pedestrianised?
Well, along the lines of all the other LTNs that London residents have had to suffer, it is another absolutely crazy scheme.
When you say LTNs, you mean low traffic neighbourhoods, right? Where some roads have been. I know, I'm just saying it for listeners who might not know. LTNs are low traffic neighbourhoods. They're intended to reduce the pressure, and it's when you have like big flower pots cutting off certain.
Again, without any consultation from local residents, just imposed on by local authorities. And the lady you had on before, when she was chatting about how great it would be, let's get it right. She's coming from the car-free city situation.
She's definitely biased, Grant.
She's definitely biased, yeah. I mean, you're not going to get anything like middle of the road from her. And the 24-hour trial is just means absolutely nothing, because I'll tell you why I'm so anti it, right? For a couple of reasons. One is, unlike a lot of people in power, I still remember the London Olympics. Sad, but I do. And one of the big
We should do a poll. But I want to return to something that you said, and I think you're absolutely right. We have to consider wheelchair users. We have to consider people who do have hardships and difficulties walking. We can't assume that everyone has the use of all of their faculties very easily, because that's privilege, right? So Grant, I think you're absolutely right. Our previous caller, Frederick, he said exactly the same thing. He said we need to consider these people, and like you said very, very aptly, Grant, this is everyone's London. So here's my question to you, Grant. What if we had pedestrianised streets, but you were able to access them in a car or in a taxi if you had a blue badge or you were carrying someone who had a blue badge? What about then? Is that fair then?
Well, I'll tell you what, when you say a blue badge, that means it's a private vehicle for a disabled user. The whole point of a licensed black cab is we are the only form of public transport that is 100% wheelchair accessible.
Right, so let's say...
Let me just answer this, Helen, yeah? I done an employment request for TfL about 2-3 months ago, and do you know what the percentage is of private hire vehicles stroke minicabs? Do you know what the percentage is of them being able to take a wheelchair passenger? And there's nearly 100,000 of these vehicles.
Tell me, Grant.
0.7%.
Fine, so...
Not even 1% of minicabs carry wheelchairs. So if you really want to open it up and make it safer and cleaner, then you let buses down the road. Just say buses and taxis. And that's it.
Yeah, but the point is, what if it was only taxis? So you, as a London cab driver, what if you could go down there if you were carrying someone who needed to be dropped off at the door, who was in a wheelchair? Let's say you get a free pass for that, but not for people who don't need to be in wheelchairs.
Yeah, but you can't tell, can you? You can't tell when you pick a passenger up. He might not be in a wheelchair. He may have issues with his vision, with his height, with his hearing. That's why we have hearing loops in taxis. I mean, you can't get a bus up Brick Lane, that's for sure, right? But you know what you can get? You can get a taxi up there, carrying a wheelchair and 5 other passengers, cutting down on private cars. Because, listen, that's half the problem. A minicab is a private vehicle. And all I keep hearing is people say, we need to cut car usage. Well, they're private cars. These are purpose-built public transport vehicles that they have. And until this mayor, who showed us, until this mayor of Transport for London actually accept that we are still public transport, that we are transport for everyone, yeah, then he's going to come back to the same argument. When he consulted on whether or not they want their road shut down, because it's affecting local residents, it's affecting local businesses, and at a time when everyone is so anxious and upset about COVID restrictions not being open, we need to open London. Not
Okay.
shut it down.
Grant, let me ask you this then. According to the research, pedestrianised streets increase footfall to restaurants and shops. So that
Where
could
did you
help
get that
open.
from?
That could help open up London. Isn't it?
Where did you get that from? Car Free City website? How can it open?
Grant, you're such
If
a
you're a
skeptic.
business, listen, Salim, if you're a business, I know
Lots
you
of
know this.
councils are running this research as well.
Yeah, but these councils have shut the road without consulting with anyone. So they're coming from a biased position. If you're a business, if me and you opened a lovely, what should we open?
An Italian restaurant.
Italian restaurant, right? I have to keep slapping your wrist because you've been taking that pasta off the bowl.
Every time,
Right,
every
we have a
time.
pasta restaurant in a lovely road. What do we need? We need people to be able to drop off when we come in, and when they're finished with a meal, and it's late at night, especially females, lone females as well, who want to get home safe, you say, I can get you, find you a taxi, get you a taxi. Comes along, you hang it down, she gets in, she gets home safe. Why are we making it impossible for women late at night to leave restaurants and bars and have a walk in areas that are darkly lit?
Yeah, but if the street was pedestrianised, you'd assume that it wouldn't be darkly lit, that it would be lit up, it would be busy, there would be people there.
No, of course not, because it's just shut, isn't it? It's just shut to vehicles. So if
But people will still be there. Street lights will still be on.
late night, not necessarily so. Say you come out from having lunch with a lady friend, and you've come out, you've had a lovely night, and you think, oh, I've shouldn't have had that last coffee, I better get
I
home.
won't be having lunch average at 10:30. I tell you that much, Grant.
So
That's supper for me now.
you've come out, you want to get unsafe, but there's no vehicles. There could be certain individuals that are making you concerned. He's following you. Where do you go? There can't be any police there because the police can't drive it. I mean, there's loads
Okay,
of
Grant,
justifications.
Grant, let me ask you this, and you're making loads of valid points, and I'm hearing you.
I like to think so because I like to think as a local who's driven the cab for 33 years and who talks to passengers on a daily basis and local businesses, they want me to bring customers to them and then they want me to take the customers home or to the train station via a more train. It's not hard.
Grant, is there any situation in which you'd be happy to have a pedestrianised street? Would you be happy if it was open to buses and taxis, but no private cars?
Yeah, listen, as long as it's buses and taxis,
As long as you're getting down that street, you're alright, eh?
no, I can give a service to the London public that we've been doing for 365 years.
Ah, Grant, you're good. You're good, Grant. I'll have you back, I'll tell you that much. Grant, thank you so much for joining me. And you too, Grant. Enjoy your supper, which is apparently now happening for you. Would love to know what you think. Do you agree with Grant? Do you think that actually there's wider issues to consider here? He made a valid point about safety and getting people home safely when they come out of restaurants and places like that. What about accessibility for people who are in wheelchairs or disabled? What about those people? What about people who are blind and actually they need to be dropped off door to door? What about people who are nervous about being out and they would like to be dropped off door to door? Are there exemptions to pedestrianised streets? Do you think we could have pedestrianised streets, but perhaps no private cars? We could have taxis are allowed or buses are allowed. Maybe that's it. Or do you think we need something that is just a harsh cut-off? Do we need to just say absolutely not? No cars down here whatsoever, no vehicles whatsoever. This is for the greater good. We have to stop thinking about individuals. It's for the greater good. Someone can come down there, maybe an ambulance or a police car if there's an emergency, but that's it. We just have to adapt. We are adaptable humans. We're used to it. I don't know the answers. George, I feel like Grant has really just swayed me there. I feel swayed. I feel like I've been well argued to. But let me know what you think. Would you be happy if your local high street was pedestrianised? Would you prefer it? Would you be totally okay with that decision? Or would you be up in arms? And are you already not? That actually some streets and areas are no traffic and have been cut off to divert traffic. 0800 731 2000 is the number that you will need. It's totally free, and I'll read it out again because I keep getting told off for speaking too fast. 0800 731 2000. You can text me on 81333. Just pop London at the beginning, or else it goes off into the ether somewhere. You can email at eddie.nestor@bbc.co.uk, or of course you can tweet at BBC Radio London, or you can tweet me at Written by Sounder, and I will see all of your tweets and I will answer all of your text messages, and of course pick up every single one of your phone calls. Let me know your thoughts. Now, before we do anything else, before we can continue our conversation, I'm going to get another cup of tea and I'm going to leave you in the very capable hands of portion of the latest news and headlines.
At 5:30, the latest for London, the devastated mother of Richard Okorogeye says she's broken after the student's body was found in a lake in Epping Forest. Speaking to the BBC, Evidence Joel said losing her son left a big hole that could never be filled. Police confirmed yesterday that the body found in a pond in the woods on Monday was that of her 19-year-old son, reported missing from the family home near Ladbroke Grove 2 weeks ago. All three emergency services are on the scene following a road traffic collision in Croydon this afternoon. The incident in Whitehorse Road, close to the junction with Windmill Road, happened just after 4 p.m. Officers attended and found that a car had struck a building, causing some structural damage and a gas leak. There have been no reports of any serious injuries. And police in Northern Ireland say last night's violence in West Belfast was on a scale not seen in the city for years. 8 police officers were injured during the rioting. Petrol bombs were thrown and a bus was burnt. Northern Ireland's power sharing executive said it was gravely concerned. London's weather tonight, it'll be largely dry with just the chance of the odd shower in the early hours of the morning. Lows of 2 degrees Celsius, that's 36 degrees Fahrenheit. For an update anytime, ask most smart speakers to play BBC News for London.
That accident down in Croydon, Selhurst Way, is still ongoing. A212 Whitehorse Road is shut. Lines Road to Motorway Road. That's causing congestion to surrounding roads A14 Alfred's Way, slow heading out of town, eastbound through Barking, partially blocked because of an oil spillage near Motors Lane, adding to the congestion back to the Canning Town flyover. The 312 slow between the Whitehall roundabout and the Pitts Hill roundabout. That's caused problems on the A40 heading out of town through Norfolk. At B times, that's ongoing. Repair work will travel half an hour.
BBC Radio London.
Good evening, this is Nick Godwin with the sports news. And Arsenal host Slavia Prague in the first leg of their Europa League quarter-final tonight. The visitors reached the last 8 with victories over Leicester City and Glasgow Rangers. The Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta is expecting a tough night at the Emirates.
We have a really difficult opponent. If you see how they come into that position, they completely merit that. They done it in a really specific way, a really efficient way, and it will be a challenge, that's for sure.
Fulham manager Scott Parker has described tomorrow night's match against Wolves as winnable, but warned they have plenty of talented players. The Cottagers could lift themselves out of the Premier League's bottom 3, albeit temporarily, with a win tomorrow night. Full commentary tomorrow evening on BBC Radio London Sports on Digital from 7 o'clock. It's the first day of the County Championship season. Surrey and Middlesex both in action. Everything's just finished for the day. Surrey put in by Gloucestershire at Bristol, and they closed on 220 for 9. And Middlesex got underway against Somerset today. Day 1 of 4 there too. Middlesex put into bat as well, and they are 293 for 8 at the close. Commentary continues on day 2 tomorrow on the BBC Sport website. And finally, Sachin Tendulkar has been released from hospital a week after he was admitted having contracted COVID-19. He said on the 27th of March he tested positive and was taken to a Mumbai hospital 6 days later.
BBC Radio London.
No man in the history of London has invested more in police.
And that's why you hear me talk about 8,000 extra police officers. That's why you hear me talk.
Next Wednesday, the London mayoral frontrunners go head-to-head on a special drive time debate.
London is a city that thrives on footfall. We need to get those people back into the centre of London.
But we've got a costed plan so we can build London back better.
Sean Bailey and Sadiq Khan answer the questions and put their case to London in the race to become your mayor next month.
All London wants is a mayor to stand up for our city.
And that will take that leadership role. They'll take responsibility.
Sean Bailey and Sadiq Khan head-to-head, a drive time special with Eddie Nesta next Wednesday from 5.
BBC Radio London.
Yes, it is indeed BBC Radio London. Welcome back. It's me, Salma El-Wadani, and it's lovely to have you here. I hope you filled up your cup and you have got a fresh cup in front of you, or a coffee, whatever it is that you'd like to sip on at this time of night. It is evening, so we're 6:34 now. You might have already been in on the wine, or the whiskey, or the beer, or whatever it is that you fancy drinking at this time in the evening. My point is, I hope you are comfortable and relaxed, because you and I, my friend, have lots to talk about, and it seems the thing that everyone wants to talk about is pedestrianising roads and streets. Here was me thinking I would love to have a conversation about fish and whether anyone would give up fishing, would give up eating fish, so that the fishing industry would stop ruining as much of the ocean as it seems to be ruining, according to the data and the latest documentary on Netflix, Conspiracy. Let me know, by the way, if giving up fish would help our oceans, would you do it? Could you give up fish? And I'm asking you, as someone who loves to eat fish, like I love fish. I love lobster, I love prawns, I like them in a salad, I like them in a paella, I like, you get the point. I love sushi. But here I am watching this documentary thinking, I might have to give up fish. Would you ever give up fish if it would help the environment? Because giving up a plastic straw and taking a reusable carry bag to the supermarket is one thing, and it's not really that much trouble for us to do, is it? I was not particularly married or particularly adamant about plastic bags or, plastic straws. I can live without them and do something else. I can take a cloth bag and I can use a paper straw. It doesn't really affect my life much. But giving up fish and giving up sushi for the rest of my life, that feels like a hard one. So I'm asking you, could you give up fish if it would help the environment? If it would make sizable The other conversation that we're having is, of course, about pedestrianising streets. I've got Mairead on the line right now from Pimlico. Mairead, good evening.
Oh, good evening. How are you?
I am very well. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm laughing because I was going to talk about pedestrianisation, but you're talking to the granddaughter of a fisherman, great-granddaughter. When we started, and I'm from the west coast of Ireland, so I know quite a bit about this. But anyway.
Well, there you go. You come from, it's in your family, it's in your legacy.
It's in my blood.
It's in your blood. Mairead, given that it's in your blood, if it would help the environment, would you give up fish?
What I would say is I would manage my expectations of fish. If you want to support a sustainable fishing industry, you're not going to get prawns in the middle of winter. You are going to have to look at using mackerel, herring, indigenous fish within the English Channel. Okay?
Okay.
So you have to manage your expectations. Also, I haven't seen seabird yet. I think scares me. It's a bit like, what was trying to holiday for me. But not all the fishing industry is the same. There are super trawlers out there.
Yeah.
They're allowed to do this by government. Then the government are supporting indigenous fishing.
Is that your telephone going, Mairead? You better go answer that.
No, that's my doorbell, but that's your fine. Anyway, about pedestrianisation.
Yes.
I'm a pedestrian in London, and I am vehemently opposed to any more pedestrianisation. It's to do with the fact that these people who want to have pedestrianisation, London is not just restaurants and bars and cafes. London is a living, breathing economy, and therefore we need to be able to feed that economy through a decent transport system. Brick Lane is just not Curryhausen. Brick Lane is the authentic garment centre of London, and therefore it encourages companies to set up there and local people to live and work within their area. Now, why are you almost penalising them if they want to have a car for an efficient ease of life? Equally, how is a person who's maybe got a walking stick or maybe is a little bit older or less agile going to face the steps in Oxford Circus in order to go down to visit the shops and to have a special day out?
Yeah, no, Mairead, you make a valid point there.
And then equally, with regard to taxis, now, the gentleman you had on was very, very good and very valid in what he said. But I would say, I want a cab at 10:30 at night in winter when I come out of the theatre. And I want to be able to go door to door because it's miserable, it's cold, it's dark, and I want to go home. And I want to be able to have that freedom of choice. And in lockdown, I have been in my friends' cars from time to time, and I have literally seen a lot of people who are now on bicycles and born again cyclists. And I have seen them cross almost five lanes of traffic in Elton Castle roundabout, and they don't have pins or any road sense. So to say to me we should all be on bicycles and we should all be pedestrians, you're actually choking out one of the main arteries of the city, both from economy and efficiency and livability.
Mairead, where have you been all my life? That's what I want to know. Honestly, it's a joy chatting to you. I'm loving all of these strong opinions. You're going for it, which is what I love.
It's a bit of a long day. But
Well,
anyway, I have to cook the dinner.
Oh, okay, fine. Well, Mairead, it's been lovely chatting to you. Go get your dinner sorted.
Ciao.
So, bye now. This is one of the things that I love so much about my job. I'm just getting to chat to you guys and people like Mairead, and I can hear a doorbell going, and then I can hear a kettle whistling in the background, and then she's just come by to just drop all of these opinions, and then she's off to make the dinner. And it is just such a beautiful insight into everyone's lives, and it automatically makes me feel more connected, and I hope it makes you, wherever you're listening across the city, I hope it makes you feel more connected to other people who are just like you, who are rushing about, getting the dinner ready, but have loads that they want to say and share. And that is just such a joy. Mairead, thank you so much for calling in, and I'd love to hear it from the rest of you, whether you're cooking the dinner or boiling the kettle or answering the door or driving, whatever it is. 0800 731 2000. Do you agree with Mairead? Maybe you are a pedestrian like she is, but you just think pedestrianising the city is not the way to go. And she makes a good point. In the winter, and I'm exactly the same, I don't want to be walking in the cold, miserable, wet British winter. Look, I think London is the best city here. But it is miserable in the winter. It is. We all know it. We're all coming out of it, and we're all sitting here freezing in this sudden temperature drop. And yes, we do want to be done door to door in the winter because it is cold. We don't want to be walking to the restaurant and walking to the car. Whatever it is, I get that. Do you agree or do you disagree? 0800 731 2000 is the number that you need to call. Right now, I've got Amira Hussain on the line, who's writing her dissertation on Brick Lane and the gentrification, which is adding another element to this conversation. Amira Hussain, welcome to the BBC.
Hi Salma, how are you?
I am very well. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm quite been on the kettle of cooking. I am swamped with my dissertation, which is due next month, so I'm not getting that done.
Well, there's less cooking for you when you've got a deadline, to be fair. So you to be fair, are chained to your desk, but make sure you do get regular tea breaks. It is the key to a successful dissertation, and as well as always having a little snack on the side of those tea breaks.
Of course.
I'm saying that as someone who got through 2 dissertations, but definitely put on pounds whilst doing dissertations. Listen, Amira, talk to me about your dissertation. You're doing it on Brick Lane and the gentrification of Brick Lane. How does the gentrification of Brick Lane tie into this conversation that we're having about pedestrianisation?
Yeah, so I can understand how pedestrianisation can be beneficial, particularly for the north end of Brick Lane, so towards Shoreditch, where you have your hip coffee shops, your artisans. But I think pedestrianisation will largely hinder the Bangladeshi community on the south end of Brick Lane, where you have your Bangladeshi curry shops and your bazaars that still depend on routine manual labour.
Mm-hmm.
So my dissertation essentially looks at how gentrification has displaced the Bangladeshi diaspora, and I think this fits in nicely with that theme. So during August last year, the council briefly pedestrianised Brick Lane for outdoor dining for Eat Out to Help Out. And this has huge consequences for Bangladeshi businesses as the road was closed to vehicles. And so it was difficult, especially for Bangladeshi bazaars, to transport heavy supplies to their shops. And this is very costly in terms of time, staff and physicality.
Amira, correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand for pedestrianised streets that there are slots early on in the morning for deliveries.
Okay.
Isn't that correct? I'm looking at my producer, and from what I've seen, generally, and I've seen just big lorries for big, some of the main shops on pedestrianised streets, they're there at like 2-3 in the morning. That's the time that they're allowed to load up. So from what I understand, those shops would still have delivery slots, but just not during the main hours.
I think the issue there then is it a convenience for Bangladeshi businesses to be operating at